Hello, today we are doing a tier list about the best methods for improving the brain, and I did this list based on scientific researches and also on my experience, so I think it will be really interesting for you to see and get know what are really the best ways to improve your brain and don't waste time as I did for some of these things. So the first thing which we have here is a turmeric, and I give it on a A tier. Why? Because it has anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. So it is proven by science that it can really have some benefits for our brain, mostly when we are already old, when we suffer from Alzheimer, dementia. It might help us in our future life, so I give it here. The next one is Feynman technique, and I would actually give already a S tier. And why it is like this? Because Feynman technique is extremely effective. I use it every time when I study, and it basically makes you study few times less and still remember the same material. Basically, you can study every day and still don't know a shit. And if you do breaks, as Feynman described in his famous scientific papers, for 1 hour, then after 1 day you do a revision, then after 3 days, 7 days, you will remember the same number, the same amount of material without studying a lot. So absolutely S tier. Palace of memory, and here also absolute S tier. Why it is like this? Because it's proven by science that this method can even increase your IQ, and we have real life examples, like for example Polish master of solving Rubik's Cube game from memory, Marcin Kowalczyk, who grew his IQ from slightly over average level to levels which weren't able to measure precisely in Mensa, so absolutely S tier. Then we have Bacopa Moniri, and I would give here an A tier because it is said, and there are some scientific researches, that it can improve mostly our memory, of course, also cognitive skills, something like this. But when you are looking for something to improve memory, which is also natural, this plant is really amazing. It comes from tropic, from Madagascar, if I'm not wrong. And yeah, I tried it a few times. However, results were not perfect. I could see some slight difference. And this was definitely not a placebo, because I also do on myself placebo tests. Like, I take random pills and I just check my results on an exam which I do on myself with ChatGPT. So I know it wasn't a placebo effect, so I would give an A tier. And then we have another supplement for a memory, which is PRL853, and these mysterious names come from Pacific Research Lab, if I'm not wrong, something like this. But I would give here an C tier, because it said it's boosting a memory, but honestly, however, I could see some slight difference. It was not as big as it would give any advantage to my life. So, and moreover, it's chemical, so you never know how clean is that, what extra things are in this shit. So I would give you an C tier, mostly after I really didn't see a huge difference. Maybe the difference was like 10, maximum 20%. So C tier, absolutely. Then we have ashwagandha, and it's an absolute S tier. I have generally a problem with being overstressed by so many stuffs, really a lot of things. I go, for example, to talk with people which I already talked millions times, but they are just my professors, and I'm scared as fuck. And after I started to take ashwagandha, my stress problems really started to disappear. Now I'm not even stressed by exams at 8 a.m. in the morning. So this thing really do its job. It's really nice thing. So absolutely an S tier. It helped me a lot of to relieve from stress. So yeah. Then we have Sunifiram, and I would give it actually a C tier. Why it is like this? Because it's technically a nootropic thing, which should put us in this motivation tribe, put our cognitive abilities to another level, of course, better. But honestly, I took it a lot of times in my life. I tried a lot of different doses as well, and I never saw a huge difference, basically anytime. Yes, maybe I saw that something works better than the other things, but I'm not sure wasn't it a placebo effect, because difference really wasn't so great. So I would give maximum a C tier. Multitasking. Of, of course, the worst D tier. And why it is like this? Because instead of doing more things at the same time, it works rather like a massive thing which can decrease your IQ, and it's proven by science that actually multitasking decreases IQ more than smoking of marijuana. So I wouldn't recommend anyone to multitask anything in your lives. Very shitty method to complete more things, and you will probably complete less things when you multitask than if you do one thing at one time. So absolutely detour. Modafinil, and I would actually give here a B tier. Why it is like this? Because it's proven by science that it has some positive effects for our cognitive abilities, but only, and it's important, if your IQ is below 114, if you are constantly too stressed, overload with knowledge, with new information, overload with work, when you do tasks which are very long and a lot of cognitive abilities, and you are sleep deprived. So basically, if something is slightly wrong with you, modafinil can have some benefits for you. And I notice it on my own. When I don't sleep in night and I take modafinil, I can basically think like a normal person. But otherwise, when I'm not sleep deprived, when everything is good, modafinil didn't give me anything. I heard that for people with lower intelligence, it might have some positive effects. But as I said here, I didn't notice any change for me when I slept well, when I ate good food, when basically everything in my life is all right. Then we have Pomodoro technique, and it's an A tier. Why? Because a lot of times, really a lot of times, our brain tends to elongate tasks. Because if we give ourselves, for example, 2 hours to complete something, there is a moment where Parkinson law starts to work at its peak. Because the Parkinson law is the scientific fact that we tend to elongate tasks depending on the time which we gave ourselves to complete them. So if you give yourself 2 hours to complete something, it will probably take you 2 hours. And Pomodoro technique forces you to give yourself just 25 minutes to complete something, because then you have a short 5 minutes break. And this break also is helpful to rebuild your neurotransmitters, stuff like this. So absolute A tier, it's working really well. But personally, I rather try to do right now some longer sessions, 1.5 hours and even longer, because it's also matching with our brain cycles, which is naturally 1.5 hours. With, for example, one cycle of sleep is also 1.5 hour. So this is how we should work. But for beginners, or for example, when you are tired, Pomodoro technique is cute. Sprints, absolute S tier. There are multiple benefits from sprints. Your testosterone grow by 20-30%. The same is with human growth hormone. It also grow by 20-30% when you do sprints. It's also proven that it has positive effects for BDNF, new connections between neurons. So absolute S tier. I sprint 3 times a week, 3 series for 30 seconds. So it's really not something which is demanding a lot of time from you, but it's giving a lot of benefits, and it's proven by science that it's one of the best kind of activities which you can do for yourself. A lot of benefits. Then we have a radula rosea, and I would give here an A tier. I use it a few times in my life, and despite the adaptogenic effect like ashwagandha, it has also some benefits for our cognitive abilities. And I could notice that my brain abilities are higher by maybe 10-15%. So I could definitely notice some slight change. And it is also proven by science that it has really, really great benefits for our cognitive abilities. So I use it a few times in my life. I recommend, but it's not something super strong which will give you superhuman abilities. Definitely not, but definitely something worth trying and worth checking on yourself, because remember, we all have different brains and different things work on us. The next thing is creatine, and I would give you a B tier, because yeah, it's proven that it can increase slightly our intelligence. However, right now they say that creatine is good for everything, for memory, for depression, for muscles, for working out. Like basically, there are studies for benefits of dopamine, for creatine, for every small things in the life. So I think it's rather now hype for the substance than real great benefits. But yeah, there are multiple studies that prove that it can slightly increase our IQ. I'm not sure did I notice it on myself. I would say maybe a little bit, or maybe it was just placebo effect, but it's definitely proven by science, so I put it here. Okay, the next we have St. John's wort, and I would give to a 8 here. Why it is like this? Because if you live in Europe, it grows almost everywhere here, and it is proven that it can boost our noradrenaline, dopamine, serotonin, and this kind of neurotransmitters which are responsible for good mood, for motivation, for abilities to learn, memorize new information. And because of it's available literally everywhere in Europe, I can go out from my house and collect few kilograms of it in like 10 minutes. I definitely gonna give it to an 8 here. Maybe not an S tier. Why it is like this? Because it has also some side effects. For example, if you drink it, drink tea from that, you cannot go to the sun because you will get terrible sunburns. Yeah, but it's working really well, and it actually was giving me some motivation to study when are winter months and you don't really go to the sun. You can really try that. B group vitamins, and I would give them also to an 8 here. Why it is like this? Because we absolutely need them to make our brain function properly. But also, I wouldn't give it to an S tier because, in fact, a lot of people just don't need to supplement that because we eat enough good things to have enough B vitamins in our diet. But for example, when my diet became terrible, it became terrible in the summer, and I started to feel really like depressed. I couldn't focus on anything, and then I ate like whole liver, which contains a lot of B group vitamins, and also in the same day, in the night, I ate a lot of eggs to just boost this kind of positive, not positive, but in general, vitamins, microelements, macronutrients, and stuff like this. And it really gave me a lot because after this night, I stopped to be depressed so much as I was, and I really felt some change. I could focus again, so I think it was caused by B group vitamins deficits. So if your diet is terrible, you should definitely add some products like eggs, liver, which contains a lot of B group vitamins. It's gonna give you a lot. And now vitamin D, and I would give it to a B tier. Why? Because it doesn't directly affect your brain. However, deficits might be very dangerous, cause depression, other mental illnesses. So definitely in the winter months, autumn months, when you don't really go out too much to the sun, you should supplement that. And the fact is that young, healthy adult men need to supplement around 10,000 units a day. Of course, you can go too much. You cannot take ridiculous amount of that because it can become a poison in really high doses. But the fact is that 90% of people in, for example, Eastern, North Europe have deficits of this vitamin. And our brain cannot work properly without it. So definitely a B tier. Choline, it's an also A tier. A lot of choline we can provide from our diet, so again, you don't need to worry about supplements. Again, the biggest amount of it is in healthy meat, like for example liver. Also, really a lot of is in eggs. In some healthy fats like nuts or olive oil, you can also find choline. Of course, it's not directly choline in this product, but our body can easily create choline from omega-3 acids, which fishes, nuts, olive oil, eggs, liver are rich in. So definitely A tier. Sleeping 7.5 hours, S tier, because actually almost no one does that. Everyone sleep around 6 hours nowadays. We are so busy by everything. We don't sleep enough, and it's our problem because there is this famous scientist, Dr. Matthew, if I'm not wrong, and he is researching the sleep for over 20 years. And he's telling that really one of the worst things which you can do to yourself, to your intelligence, to your learning skills, cognitive abilities, is to not sleep enough during the night. And actually, most of people don't sleep this 7.5 hours, which is absolutely necessary. If you have problems with memory, with learning something, with focusing, most probably you don't sleep enough. And being honest, most of people don't sleep enough. Most of. You can check statistics from well-developed countries and see how rare is that, and think how big benefit will it give you if you will just start to sleep 7.5 hours. And stop to lie to yourself that you don't have time. Obviously you have. You just procrastinate your sleep. You prefer to watch TikTok, you prefer to scroll in the night, you prefer to do some shit instead of just go sleep for the 7.5 hours, which is absolutely crucial. Okay, caffeine bitter. If you use caffeine strategically, it can be a really good supplement for you. Because, for example, before hard tasks, it can give you this kick of energy to do something productive, to do something which is actually helping you to chase your dreams. So, in this case, yes, but a lot of people use caffeine absolutely not strategically, just completely randomly. Wake up in the morning, drink caffeine, drink coffee, which is absolutely the bad thing for you, because in morning we have already really high cortisol and caffeine boosts that even higher, so it doesn't really give you so much benefits. But for example, 1 hour from waking up before hard tasks, I mean strategically, it can really have some huge benefits. I drink coffee on my own, and I would say drinking it strategically before hard tasks, at least 1 hour from waking up, really helped me to get the most benefits from this supplement. So, bitter. Lion's mane, A tier. It has a proven ability to boost neurogenesis in our brain, so it can basically create new neurons. So if you have more neurons, more neurotic connections, of course, obviously you become a little bit smarter, your brain function better. But what's giving the fastest and best benefits probably for most of users is the fact that it is really good in eliminating brain fog. If you are this tired, not productive, if you wake up like this, most probably it of course might be a deficit of choline, deficit of vitamins, elements, things like this. But if you do all things all right and you still have some noticeable brain fog, lion's mane is a really thing for you. It's really good at eliminating brain fog. I used to drink it as a coffee in the morning instead of traditional coffee with caffeine, and I could really see a change. It helped me to cure my brain fog, and however, I don't need it anymore because I don't have a brain fog anymore for the reason that I live really healthy. I recommend it if you struggle with a brain fog. Magnesium, it's an A tier because it's absolutely crucial thing for motivation, for cognitive abilities, for necessary for focus, for learning, for studying, for everything, literally, when it's coming to the brain. And nowadays, a lot of people have deficits of this from a very simple reason, because our soils are super fertile nowadays. Few hundred years ago, our soils were, of course, few hundred years younger. So it means they had much more elements, much more nutrients, which are absolutely necessary for us. Right now, we have a problem with that. Our soils are really poor in elements, in nutrients. So instead of providing the right amounts of magnesium in food, probably most of us will need to supplement that. And I personally also supplement magnesium, and I could see some benefits when it's coming to a focus on things. So magnesium definitely an A tier. And zinc, it's the biggest amount of this element is actually in our brain. So it already tells a lot how important it is for the correct functioning of our brain. Basically, I cannot mention any brain function from memorizing to focusing to solving some complex problems. Of course, when it's coming to cognitive skills, the zinc is necessary and absolutely crucial in all of them. So definitely an A tier. But we can provide zinc with a lot of foods. For example, if you eat a lot of seafoods, especially oysters, I know they are expensive, and you probably have associations with rich people on yachts, but they are really not as expensive. If you search carefully, you can find oysters for a quite reasonable price. They are super rich in zinc, but if you cannot afford to oysters, a lot of seafoods, you can try to take zinc on our own. And also for the men, it's quite easy to lose a lot of zinc, so it's even more important for us men. The last thing is my ebook, which is based on over 50 scientific researches, absolute S tier, where I explain more carefully and with a lot of scientific researches, different ways to improve your brain, improve your intelligence, learn faster, memorize faster, and basically every way how to improve your brain functioning. I described there all supplements for the brain or medicine for a brain, all ways how you can do it, all things which you can do for yourself to study effectively. So in an absolute S tier, and you can buy it, of course, in the description. It costs only $10. So yeah, I recommend it a lot, and you will be happy to read it.